everybody. You're very welcome to Magical Ireland with me. Tonight I speak to Michelle Roos. Michelle is the founder of Riverside, Iowa Paranormal. She's a trance medium, a psychic medium. She's an ordained minister, and she's also a psychic advisor. But she is so much more. So hang with us for about an hour and enjoy the show. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube and our Rumble channels. Hang with us for an hour. Welcome very much, everybody, to Magical Ireland with me and Secret Ireland Tours. Well, as the introduction says, Michelle Roos is here with us. And you know something, if I was to talk about all the experiences and all the qualifications that this lady has, it would probably take me the whole hour. So what I'm going to do is I am going to very shortly shut up and I'm going to ask Michelle about her life, where she was born. Michelle, it's great to have you on the show. I'm delighted to get talking to you again.
I am super excited. I've been waiting all week to actually talk to you because we've been all so busy, but also talk about this magical trip. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the stuff that you do with these trips. It's got its own ambiance, and I'm like, yes, let's do it.
But you know what we're going to talk about first, Michelle, because a lot of people would know you from different events that you're doing and from everywhere you appear. But some people might not know your background or where you were born and how your gifts presented themselves, how you dealt with it. I'm not going to ask you what you had for your breakfast this morning, but I go close enough.
Well, we'll start with breakfast. It was a protein
Okay.
shake.
Okay.
I am a military brat. I was born in California, but grew up in Europe.
Okay.
I come from a German family. My mom's German and everyone. I started, I've always had my abilities, but never understood them. We always talk about the monsters under the bed and the monsters in the closet. I never understood at first what that meant. Well, I do know what that means. So, like, if your kids are saying this to you guys, listen to them.
Mhm.
But I was always wondering why the little kids and the different people were coming in my room, but they looked very scary. They weren't that very beautiful, angelic, warm feeling you want to play with. I would see them at the time of their death.
Oh,
And I would hear, the pain and everything they were going through.
would you feel
Now,
would you feel it,
huh?
Michelle?
I would feel it. I would. And so I would scream and all that. Now, you got to remember the time I was growing up, this was a taboo. You didn't talk about it. And so it was kind of one of those, as a child, you don't know how to deal with this. So I always thought, we talk about night terrors and over imagination and all this kind of stuff, but it just became more and more. And it was kind of one of those that I try to shut it down. And I think I was ignoring it enough as a child that I kind of blocked it. And when I did see things, I didn't see it. I just kind of like, yep, that's not real. And I just kept moving.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when I talk to people, I'm not like a Teresa Caputo or anything. I don't give love notes. I can't, say this is what they're saying or they forgive you or things. I see the darker side of things. So like when I go into a location or anything, I will see the horrible history that happened and I
Oh,
start speaking for spirit. So talking about that, meaning if bad things happen there, they're coming up to me because
they
they
need.
never had a voice.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to be their voice. And it took me many years, many, many years, because I wasn't listening, um, to know that when I say I speak for spirit, I'm really speaking for spirit.
Yeah.
And also, when I speak for spirit, when I have talked to people, like if they've lost a loved one to suicide and stuff, I am speaking of the pain they went through prior to that. And
Okay.
this is why they did it. And this is what's happened. And those are the things that I speak about, the pain and everything that led up to it.
Yeah.
Um, if it was a woman that was severely abused, she's shown me pictures of what she went through and different things like that. And it does get very hard at times. But again, when we talk about the paranormal, everybody talks about all the rainbows and unicorns and things like that. They don't understand history, even though it's not in the books, had a very dark side.
Mm-hmm.
And those people were hushed back then. You weren't
Yeah.
allowed to speak. Well, now they're trying to speak of, hey, we were here.
Yeah.
And so that is mainly what I do. But I can also give readings to people, but they're not very glorious. I mean, they are, but they're not. You have to be ready to take a really hard truth.
Yeah. And can you help spirit move on?
Yes, I absolutely can. I have done it a couple times when they're ready. And a lot of times they do move on when they are able to tell their piece.
Uh-huh. So that
And
might be what's
people
holding them.
don't, yes, yes. And I had just done a show and we were talking about it. We don't realize a lot of spirits that we talk to, especially like going across the pond, been there a lot longer. You know, when you're looking at people from the 1600s, the 17, the 1800s,
Yeah.
the way their life was back then is nothing like ours. So for us to expect them to speak to us what we would think we were supposed to hear is not really their truth,
Mm-hmm.
and we always see memes on Facebook about, we're talking to the spirits and they're just shaking their head. Well, I will tell you, I have seen something like that, like, well, this guy was a general and he was the greatest person ever and stuff. And you see a line of women and men going, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. And then I'm just sitting there going, don't
Mm.
say nothing, don't say nothing. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, and then it falls out,
Yeah.
and so I hid a lot of that because I'm like, what I'm telling people is so unbelievable. But I'm like, but when you hear what I'm telling you and what I'm seeing, they're like, well, that can't be. Spirits are all happy go lucky. No, no,
Not
not
that.
at all.
No.
Go to an asylum. Back in the day, men would drop their women off if they spoke too much because they said they're crazy. And
Yeah.
these women would get locked up in these places and die.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think she was a happy woman in there? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So why would you think she's a happy spirit? She's
Yeah.
still trapped in that nightmare.
Yeah.
So I am trying to let that paranormal side say we have to speak for those who couldn't speak back then or now.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what I wake up. So when we're going to these historical places, I am giving you the real historical things behind it. And, and it's crazy when you see the people who work there go, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Well, that's not spoken about
Yeah.
because we try to hide it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what you get when you're with me. It doesn't mean I always get it. Because of it being a little bit of the darker side, if there's really negative energy or entities there, they actually shape themselves into like these creatures, like half body or creepy fingers.
Yeah.
And so this is showing the real negative side of that person. If you were a total not nice person when you were alive, it is showing the true soul of you, your
Yeah.
true spirit. And it could be a creepy creature looking thing. It could be one who's got a split tongue because of the way you spoke.
Yeah.
And these are the things that I'm able to see and explain. And then I know kind of which questions to ask to get
Yeah.
it on all our
Yeah.
devices.
It's kind of like, I suppose, you could talk about somebody and you could say about them, God, he's a monster.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that's what his spirit turns into being, or that's how he shows himself, or
Yes.
he's seen in spirit world.
Yes, yes. And we forget that.
Yeah.
We have watched so many paranormal shows or so many different, Facebook or YouTubes that we think we just put a recorder there and we just talk to them, and we have to respect them. I'm not saying don't respect, but we also have to know how to speak to certain spirits to get what you want.
Yeah.
If I've got a nasty spirit coming at me because I'm a woman and back in their time, you spoke to a woman a certain
Yes.
way,
Yeah.
I stand up and say, well, at this point, you're not able to speak to me like this. Why don't you tell the truth of what you did?
Yeah.
And I'm not being rude about it,
Yeah.
but I'm also setting that stance of, no, this is how it needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that there's a venue outside of Cincinnati. I won't mention the name of it. I think it's been pulled down, but the basement of it was extremely active. And I had a friend who used to do ghost tours down there. She used to bring people down, but there was one corner of it that definitely had an entity that was absolutely not nice. And at one stage, she said to me, I'm never going down there again. And I says, why? She says, I saw a woman being thrown right across the room. She says she was literally thrown right across the room.
Yeah.
And this friend of mine never went down after that.
There's horrid things. I mean, think about how we live our lives now. We have our emotions. We're moody. We have all these different anger and all that. And people have to remember back then they had the same emotions we do as humans.
Yeah.
So whether you had really bad people, you had good people, you had abused people, it's the same thing. But it seems like when we go back in time, we forget that they lived like us,
Yeah.
maybe not with the technology, but with the same emotion
Oh,
driven
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And there was very, what went behind closed doors back then stayed behind closed doors. There was no social
Yeah.
media to throw
Yeah.
people out there.
Yeah.
And that is kind of what I really try to tap into. Now, I get the good stuff. I do see beautiful
Yeah.
things, but they don't come across that much to give a reading unless it's a very nagging type of person,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
other than that,
Yeah.
I really am the voice for
Yeah.
spirit.
Well, I suppose, well, I have this belief that everything is energy and every emotion is energy. You exude
Yeah,
a certain type of energy, whether it be happy or sad or negative or positive, and that has to go or do something. It has to go somewhere.
absolutely.
So either it gets absorbed in the buildings or it gets absorbed somewhere else or it gets absorbed or it gets attached to something. But like that energy doesn't die.
No,
So
no,
if somebody got killed or if somebody, for instance, this building behind me, I might have told you this will be, I think you're going to be visiting that, but we'll be going through your tour later on. But that building is called Belvedere House. And the young wife of that house was thrown into a room for 30 years and she was not allowed to speak or see her children, or the staff were not allowed to talk to her or anything. She was totally left on her own. Now, that had to have an effect on her. And I'm sure whatever, and I think she probably went insane to a certain level or a certain degree. So that had to cause or create its own energy in that room.
absolutely. And it's trapped in that room
Yeah,
because all she knew was she couldn't leave. Nobody could cross it. So
yeah.
that energy is sitting right
It
there,
had
and
to be,
every
yeah,
emotion she felt or thought of is in there.
yeah.
So it would make sense, like when people go through it, everybody might feel something different,
Yeah, well,
you
in that
know?
particular house, I remember bringing a group, and we went into this particular room. Now, I have no sense of smell, but we walked in there, And I'm thinking, God, there's a disgusting smell of cigar smoke. Absolutely disgusting. And the tour guide, Mary was her name now. I think her daughter has taken over tour guide work in that building now. But she was brilliant. I mean, she had the whole history of the house down, and it's really an interesting place. But I was going like this, and she looked at me. She said, May, what's going on? And I said, well, I don't know, Mary. I said, I don't have any sense of smell, but the smell of cigar smoke in here is horrendous. She says, this was the smoking room. And another girl in the same group said, I can smell it as well,
Yeah.
but nobody else could. But it was strong, Michelle. It
Oh
was,
yeah.
to me, I mean, for somebody that doesn't have a sense of smell, it was strong. And another girl could smell it as well, but we didn't know that it was the smoking room. And all the gentlemen would go in there and
Yeah.
smoke and speak spot and politics and, talk about whatever they had to talk about. But that was the energy that seemed to have been left in there.
Yeah. And that's what makes it really crazy. Like when you do investigations at places, you have to remember because back then the women would have their room.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you could smell like all these floral perfumes because they all wore something.
Yeah.
And the men's smoking room just was horrid. You just stale smoke and all that. And then, you can kind of navigate if you allow your body to do so.
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah, but again, as I just say on nearly all of these programs, you can't throw a stone in Ireland, but you'll hit a ghost anyway. But
Yeah.
it has such a massive, long history and a turbulent history. And the fields and the stone walls and the grass has been bled on, so
Oh, yeah.
and it's not all bad either. We've got our fairies and we've got our other little things that play tricks on us. But so tell us about what you're doing. You're involved in movies now and things like that. I'm very
So,
excited about this for you.
yeah. So I've always wanted to do like a horror film, and I was able to get involved in a couple that, we're going to be filming. Are they super, super, big parts? Absolutely not. But I get killed in them and I get to scream in them and there's going to be blood. And I'm like, what better way to do that?
Yeah.
Um, just something I've always wanted to try. And I'm like, um, after talking to you a lot, May, and I know this sounds crazy because we're on here, but the stuff that you went through and where you're at, I'm like, when we say you have to live your life because you can't take nothing with you, don't have regrets. I'm like, it's okay if it's a B movie. I don't care.
Yeah.
I can at least say I was there, I ran through a woods, or I did this, but I did it.
Yes, it's
Does
an
it mean I'll
experience.
ever do it again? Maybe not, but it was one you do only live once.
Yeah.
And I want to have that bucket list of just
Yeah.
kind of checking things off, doing either a horror flick or the
Yeah.
paranormal or speaking to people and letting them know, certain things. Yeah, I just
Well,
it's something to
something.
do.
Yeah. Well, something, Michelle. Most people have things that they want to do, and the only thing that's stopping them is their own mind.
Absolutely. We always say you can't take it with you, but we still all hold on to everything like we can.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like something we talk about like with the tours or spending some money to go on a vacation somewhere. You always say, oh, it's my bucket list.
Yeah.
Well, it can be your bucket list. Oh, excuse
God
me.
bless you.
um and I was that person. Everything was, I was absorbed. Okay, I go to work, I take care of kids, I go do this and I go do that, and everything was just put in like a file. And then I got to thinking, I'm like, I can't do that anymore because you will get yourself trapped. We look at they have the hamster in the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all become that
Yeah.
without realizing. And, so like a lot of times when I see people say, God, that's on my bucket list, I always throw it out there. It can be reality.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, Michelle, and I will say this straight out, speaking from absolute experience, when you're dying, you don't give two hoots about money or anything
Correct.
when you're dying. And I'm speaking from experience. Money is actually the last thing on your mind.
Yes. And more conversations we had, it was never a boo-hoo moment, but it was an enlightening moment because until you're in somebody's shoes, and that's why I was like, yeah, I need to rethink how I'm doing things. If I got to take time off of work. I need to go out there because I'm always one of those that has leftover vacation because I don't want to use it all because I'm always like, well, if there's an emergency, well, why should I live my life worried about if there's an emergency?
Because that emergency might never happen, and then you've lost your
Abs-
time. Your time you cannot
Absolutely.
get back.
Absolutely. And so, just like I had to learn with my abilities until I found where I actually fit in, because I tried to fit in everywhere,
Yeah,
thinking I had to be liked by hundreds of people, or I had to be, I was one of those thinking, oh, nothing's ever going to happen. Nobody's going to know the story of these spirits, unless I am on TV or I'm on this, because nobody's going to invite me to Paracons because I didn't have a show or I didn't have
yeah,
this.
yeah,
And I was letting all this eat at me. And I'm like, wait a minute, that is not what this is. I am doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to, people who will understand it or has something close will also follow with me.
yeah, yeah,
you know, just because I'm a demonologist and exorcist doesn't mean I'm running around with crosses and exercising. I did all that for myself
yeah,
because I was seeing dark, negative stuff.
yeah,
So I needed to know for myself, are these real demons? Are they this?
yeah,
Other kids are seeing it and stuff. So everything I have done in my life was for me. And now I'm just sharing it with people. But before, I thought I had to give it to everyone because, of course, I wanted to be liked and
yeah,
followed like everyone else. And then I'm like, that's wrong.
yeah. But not alone that. But again, we're our own worst enemy because, as you said, I'm not big enough to be invited onto this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
But if you said, if you turned around and switched that around, Michelle, and said,
Yeah.
I am, and it's here, and I'm going to be refused. I am actually refusing paracons all over the place. You
Yep.
actually attract what you think.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I've had to learn. Like I said, it was easy with the abilities because I'm like, okay, I have something, there's substance there. I got to learn how to deal. And then I'm like, well, maybe I need to do this. And I am a very positive thinker. And then I got down in that black hole and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to work,
Yeah,
because I'm here. If I was given this gift, whether it's a gift or not,
yeah,
I think it's still a gift, even though it's so dark, then I have this gift for something else. And maybe I'm being prepared for something else.
yeah,
And that's how I'm thinking. And like I said, now I'm living every day, day by day, because this is how it's supposed to be.
yeah. And if you give your passion to it, it'll bring you to the next step.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, I mean, I had no idea when I moved over to America that I was going to be doing tours, but that's the way I was led. And
Yeah.
now it's my passion and I'm enjoying it. I had a few bumps along the way, but yeah, we're still here.
You know what though? When you have a passion, you should have the bumps
Yeah,
because that just shows you if you continue on, the passion is real.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm not going to stop the paranormal. I'm not going to stop this, no matter, if there's rumors out there, no rumors out there, whatever happens, it won't stop who I am.
yeah,
And I'm not going to hide behind a facade anymore. It's like this, this is who I am. This is
yeah,
what you get. And you're going to enjoy having the greatest time with me anyways, no
Yeah.
matter what we do. You know, we can go to Walmart and still have a good old time.
Yes. And Michelle, how did let's say, how did your family now, or how did your kids, of course they grew up with you doing this anyhow, so it was probably second nature to them, but like, how did you navigate telling family and relations and cousins and things like that, or did you just let them find out for themselves?
Well, let's put it this way. As I was going more and more in it and things were becoming more real, it was a very difficult time because it was, you're telling tall tales, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. I was constantly in trouble. I'm going to tell you, I was in trouble a lot. And I would sit in my room and literally cry because I'm like, as a child, you don't know which way to go. I
Yeah.
mean, you're trying to tell an adult because you're terrified, but yet you're getting in trouble for telling the truth.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, it came to one time that um in Germany, every day my Oma would send me to go get the bread on the corner and the lunch meat. So when they'd come home for lunch, everybody would have it warm bread.
Yeah.
And you know, back then we always heard don't talk to strangers. That's just something you grew up
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
And I always seen the same car all the time, but nothing ever happened. So I just moseyed on. And one day the car stopped. And that car, the guy kept trying to get me into the car. And I remember the little blonde girl sitting in the back of the car, just shaking her head no, shaking
Oh,
her
oh,
head no.
oh, yeah.
And, you know, I know the color of her dress and the way her hair was and stuff, that I ran home.
Yeah.
And because it was just going down the street and around a corner. So it wasn't very far. I'm out of breath. I'm in tears. I'm trying to tell the story. Well, of course, my uncles were Polizei or police
Yeah. Police
officers.
officers. Yeah.
Yeah. And they brought them over, and I'm just doing this. And they were just hounding me. You're lying. There's no way. This didn't happen. We don't see it, and blah, blah. And, you know, you're finally come to the point I can understand when you're in interrogation, you break and you're just finally like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
done. I
Yeah.
whatever. Oh, did I get in trouble? And my Oma was so disappointed in me, which broke my
Yeah.
heart,
Yeah.
you know, and I just couldn't. Well, to find out years later, the reason they didn't believe me was that
Uh-huh.
little girl was kidnapped. They were both dead.
Yeah.
And I seen them in their dead form, but they were real to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, the little girl was still needing my help, but I didn't know. I just ran. You know, she's saying no, but it's like she was trying to tell me something. But literally, I'm going to tell her, babe, I got my butt beat.
Yeah.
I got put on restriction, and my Oma was disappointed in me. Now, my Oma passed away before she ever found out really what happened. Now, I don't know if maybe my uncles had told her down the line, but I mean, it was so devastating.
Yeah. It has to be devastating for a
It
child.
is devastating because you're just like, what?
But I'm
You
telling
know,
the truth and nobody's believing me.
nobody. And, you know, and that's the thing. There's a lot more kids that have these abilities. But I think the only good thing about really having the paranormal out in the open as it is, parents are more willing to listen.
Yeah.
See, back then, you didn't talk about that because that was all devil's work,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, but, you know, I could see my Oma would kind of dance with my Opa, even though he had passed. And I'm just like, well, she must see him,
Yeah.
you know?
So
But it
she,
was always,
yeah, she didn't want to think that her grandchild would have the same possibly affliction. She might have thought of it as an affliction as opposed to
it had to have been. Can you imagine if she did have it? I mean, because my Oma was put in a concentration camp and things
oh
for
God, can you
helping with the
imagine? Oh,
military.
can you
Oh,
imagine?
yeah.
I can't even begin to imagine.
And luckily, my Opa was able to get her out, you know, and stuff like that. But it was just kind of one, you know, did she have it and how did she see it,
Yeah.
you know? And, but yeah, it was a horrible thing.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, you know, out of all the different things that happened as a child with seeing some of this stuff and everything, that is the only thing that's ever really stuck out. Like that little girl, I
Yeah,
could see her face and everything. And I'm just like, is
yeah,
she around?
yeah.
Does she have something to say? You know, and it
Does
is,
she need help to move on?
yeah. But the same car, I seen the car all the time. I just never knew what was in it until
Yeah,
that day.
until it stopped.
And I'm just like, yeah, he got killed
Yeah.
and the little girl was, and I'm just like, oh, and it's haunted me forever because I'm just like,
Isn't that amazing that you'll never get that out of your head?
yeah, that one time out of everything I've ever seen, I
I think
can't get that out of my head.
you need to go back to Germany.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I think we'll have to work on that. But
Yeah,
but talking about traveling and everything, you've been around, you've been in many places around the
yeah.
world doing tours and things like that. But Michelle is coming to Ireland in 2025. It's September, isn't it, Michelle?
September 22nd to the 30th, I believe.
I am going to share the screen and we can talk about the tour, will we?
Yes.
We will. Yeah, there's Michelle. What did I say? What did I share? Share. There you go. There's the
There I
beautiful
am.
Michelle. And that's the We Travel website. But as I've said to people before, anyone that wants to join us on this, if you go to www.secretirelandtoursllc.com and then you click the spooky tab and then you see tours for 2025, click on that and then scroll down and you'll see Michelle's this face and it'll bring you into my website page and then you'll have a QR code there, you'll have an interactive map there and you'll have a green button that brings you into this, which is the payment platform and the information platform for the whole tour. So there's double room, there's a twin room, let's say double room for, let's say, a couple that want to just to use the one bed. And then there's twin room for people who want to share the room but want a bed each. And then there's single occupancy for some people who just don't want to share a room at all, that just want their own privacy. And you have about this trip, about Michelle,
Yep.
conditions, the contract, you'll get the contract on the web page, and then your costs include, it shows you all that it includes and what it doesn't include. And then at the very bottom, we have the itinerary. Now, this place here that you're looking at, it's very much like what is behind me. That is Powers Court. You see, because when people come in the day of, we like to give them a kind of a relaxed day, but this is a beautiful place, Michelle. It has gorgeous gardens. It has a butterfly garden and a Japanese garden and beautiful ponds. And it
Oh,
has a graveyard cemetery. And there's a distillery there. There's a beautiful Avoca shop, Avoca woolens. It's all wool products and everything. But it's absolutely a beautiful place to just roam around for a few hours, and it's a great place to just relax. And then
yeah.
we go up the road further up to a place called Glendalough, which actually is a monastic settlement. It has a round tower, perfect round tower that dates back, I think it must date back to the 12th century at least. And
Oh,
again, and there's the ruins of all these churches, and then there's graves there as well. But the scenery on the way up is fantastic. The actual St. Kevin's Round Tower is amazing, and the whole site is just, it is absolutely incredible, really. And to think that you're walking on that, sacred land and sacred place
yeah.
that is so rich in history. It really is. If you're into history at all, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So then we come back and we stay in a hotel. Um, there's a hotel. I want to bring you outside Dublin, and this is a beautiful. I usually use this hotel. There's a swimming pool in it and spa treatment, and there's a golf
Oh,
course around it. If anyone wanted to have a game of golf, you could have your game of golf in the evening, or you could go for a swim, or you could just relax. So that
yeah.
would be an easy day for the first day. And then The next day, oh, we have a secret venue. We cannot tell them about that. We will be going out of Dublin and we will be doing an investigation in a very, very, very haunted place. And then we will, do you know the one we're talking about? Yes. And we'll be coming back into Dublin again. And we're visiting Kilmainham Jail and Malahide Castle. Now that's Malahide Castle. And that has, it's reputed to have about 5 ghosts. And they have what Puck, what's his name? I can't remember his name now. There was one man, he's a ghost, Puck or Puck, I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. It's something like that. But anyhow, he was small in stature and he was very, very loyal to the family. And of course, these places were always being attacked, you know, by the British and
Mhm.
whatnot. And he wanted to fight in the army of the castle, but he was too small. So they used to ask him to be sentry, go out and keep an eye for the enemy coming. So anyhow, one night he was out and he fell asleep and the castle was attacked. And he felt so bad, he killed himself. He committed suicide. And it said that he haunts that place. And he's only one of about 5 more that haunt that place. But again, you know, all of these places have sad histories and turbulent histories, but it's a beautiful tour and there's beautiful gardens around it as well. I mean, they really did live in the laps of luxury, but at the same time, they lived
Yeah.
in really kind of hard times because
Mhm.
you had to hold on to what you had, you know?
That's right. That's right.
So Kilmainham Jail is a very special place as well. Now for the Irish it definitely is special, but Kilmainham Jail is it was built at one stage, it was outside Dublin City. Now it's in the city. And the 1916 Rising rebels were actually shot by the British, and the yard is there. And one of them had been hurt during the Rising, and he couldn't stand up to be shot, so they shot him sitting down
Oh,
in the
wow.
yard. Yeah, and there's a cross there where he was shot. I mean, the minute you walk the front door, actually, they used to hang people outside the front door, and you
Oy.
feel it as soon as you walk near it. You can feel it. But the place is turned into a museum, and it is amazing historic place now. If you wanted to go to for any history about the 1916 Rising or any of the other risings in Ireland as well, this place has anything you're looking for. It really is amazing if you're into history at all. But Kilmainham Jail and then Malahide Castle. And that is day 2. How are we doing so far, Michelle?
We're doing great.
Number 3. Now, this is that house behind me. You see that?
Okay.
This is
Yep.
Belvedere House. The picture that you're looking at there is called the Jealous Wall.
Okay. I've
I think
heard
I
about
might have,
that.
I think I
Yeah.
might have told you about that before. Well, this guy, Robert Rochford, was the husband of the woman that he was the man that locked her up because
Okay.
his brother George Rochford set a, a rumor going that Mary, the wife, was having an affair with the younger brother Arthur. Now, Robert would leave Mary on a regular basis with her 4 children and he'd go off to London or he'd go off to Dublin or he'd go off to, he was, you know, socializing with all his big
Yeah.
gigs. And of course, she was a socialite in Dublin and she had, you know, a very social life there. And she got married to him very young and he brought her out to the country and she was literally in the middle of nowhere compared to what she was used to. This was,
Yeah.
you know, this was not easy. And she had 4 children and he got bored and he decided to go off roaming, as we say at home in Ireland. He went roaming and when he came back at one stage, he heard the rumor about his wife. So he took her and he put her into a room for 30 years. Now, at the same time, his brother George built a mansion down the valley. And when Robert's guests would come to this house here,
Yeah.
they would see the mansion. So Robert decided he did not want them seeing his brother's mansion, so he built this jealous wall, it's called, and it's still there to this day. And it's actually that house is very, very active, but it's very well kept. The
Yeah.
trees are amazing. There's beautiful gardens around it, and this is actually quite amazing to walk up to and see this wall. And the
It is
man,
amazing.
yeah, and the mansion that was down in the valley, that's not there anymore.
Oh,
Yeah, that's not there. That's gone. But it is a beautiful place to visit. And then on our way, we're going from Dublin to the northwest. We're going to visit a place called Lough Forest Park. Beautiful, beautiful place. Again, um, there's an island in the lake in Lough, and there's a castle on it that is an 11th century castle. Now it's a ruin
oh,
at this stage, but it dates back to the 11th century. There's beautiful walks there. There's a bog garden. There's wishing chairs. There's zip lines. There's all sorts of things. There's the lake. It's just a beautiful place to visit, and just again to walk on historic lands like that.
yes.
It's beautiful. And we have a few secret little places in there, There's a couple of wishing chairs. People can sit down and make a wish, and there's a fairy bridge. What else is there? Oh, I call it my magic tree. It's a massive, massive tree with massive roots all over the place, but you can walk into the middle of it and you're in the
Oh,
tree. The tree is all around you.
oh my
And
gosh.
I've had this all my life. This place is not too far away from where I lived, Lough Forest Park. So that's Lough Forest Park, and then we will be staying in a place called Tubbercurry. It's a small town in South Sligo. Beautiful hotels. They're family run. They're only 2 minutes away from each other. The town is not very big. You'll be entertained by local musicians. You'll meet the locals,
Oh,
and yeah, they might get you up dancing and singing and whatnot.
absolutely.
Yeah, oh yeah, you have to, when you're in Sligo in Tubbercurry, you become one of the gang, It's
There
like,
you go.
so it's not all just serious investigations either. So
No, no, that's the great thing about it. This is not just paranormal, it's history, spiritual, and actually just relax and fun at the
yeah,
same
yeah.
time.
Well, the next day actually is the scenic drive day.
Ooh,
Michelle, I always, whenever I have a tour going up the northwest, this is a must. I bring people to the coast, the northwest coast. Now, what you're looking at there is a place called Slieve. It's the highest cliffs in Europe. And
oh,
on the way, we will bring you through a coastal drive, Mullaghmore Coastal Drive. It's stunningly beautiful. And then you come up here and you get to go to the top and you look down at the ocean, and you can go up the whole way up to the very top and go for a walk. But the scenery is simply stunning. On
oh,
the way back, then we'll give you a couple hours in a town of Donegal, and it's one of these quaint towns. People can go for a little bit of shopping, and they can get some
oh,
to eat and just relax. And there's a
yeah.
castle there if you want to visit it. There's a beautiful ruins of an abbey and a graveyard there if you want to visit it. But
Oh,
you
yeah.
get about 2 hours to just, and there's some nice little gift shops there if people want to go. And then on the way back down to Sligo, we're going to bring you into what's called a court tomb. It's a Neolithic tomb. And
Oh,
before you actually walk into the tomb, into the court tomb, there's a wishing tree. And you get to put a little bit of cloth with either your troubles or your wishes and tie it on the tree, and the tree will take it up to the cosmos and deal with it for you.
Oh,
So you
nice.
get some of the culture, you get some of the customs of
Yes.
Ireland as well. And, you know, you get some of the scenery, and you walk on ancient land, you know, not just historic land, but you walk on ancient land as well.
Hmm.
So that's day 4. Day 5. Oh, there's my man, Pat Noon. You're going to really love this guy. Now, he's another favorite of mine. Pat is an extraordinary man. He's a healer, but he has a very extraordinary farm. He has a fairy fort on the farm, and he has a fairy portal. And
Oh,
what he's standing on there is called a cairn. It is actually an underground passage tomb that would date back to possibly before the pyramids. He's got standing stones. He's got a fertility stone. Um, he'll bring us all around. He'll tell us all about the history of the land, and he will bring us, and he'll ask permission that we go into the fairy fort. Patty Negri and myself, we've had some experiences on his land. He has healed some, you know, a couple of people that have come with us to the land. He's a real, his roots are deep in Irish soil. That's all I can say about Pat Noon. But his wife invites us into the house. Then she makes tea and biscuits for us, and
oh my God, yes.
yes, he, you know, and we'll hear some stories, and he will give us some peat. He gave my groups, you know, little sods of we call it turf, but you probably call it peat here, and it comes from his bog. And then if we're nice to him, he might take the dog out, and he'll show us how the dog works the sheep on the farm.
Nice.
You know, it's just a whole, you know, 4 or 5 hours of just you're on an Irish
Magic.
farm.
It's
Yeah, you're on an
magic.
Irish farm with a local farmer, and he's just gifted, and he's really knowledgeable about everything. So that's your fairy fort, and people have had amazing experiences in that fairy fort, and he won't tell you any of the stories because he says he doesn't want to influence anyone or put any thoughts into their heads. He lets you
And
go in, and you can find out what you want to find out, and then you can come back afterwards and
ask.
talk about it, or ask. Yeah.
So, also I heard Galway, and I don't know, and this is a good question for you. I heard Galway was where Halloween actually originated,
Well,
where the celebration of it
there
or
is
whatever.
there are celebrations, but there's an awful lot of places like a Thai near Kildare. They say that it originated there. It originated in Ireland because
Yes,
Halloween was the pagan festival
yes,
Irish, that they were saying goodbye to the old Celtic New Year, and they were welcoming in
bringing in the new,
the new.
right?
And the customs in Ireland at the time were, for instance, even now to this day, all of the older houses would have fireplaces.
Yeah,
And even when I was growing up in Ireland, Michelle, the fire was never let go out.
that's what I've always heard.
Yes.
And like I said, and Galway has, from what I hear, this extra special type of magic that
Well,
surrounds the whole.
It has,
Yes,
no doubt about it.
and I've heard that a lot, and I know they were talking about the origination of that because of the
Yeah.
pagan
But
traditions.
yeah. But what happens is, and this is where your pumpkin originates from. What happens is on the eve of um, Halloween or
Yeah,
Samhain, we would call it Samhain.
saw one. Yeah,
On the eve of Samhain, all the farmers would put fires in the four corners of the fields, and they'd herd the cattle through the fires. Now, the fires wouldn't be near the cattle, but it was
yeah,
that the fires would take any negative energy of the old year away from the cattle. So the cattle would be free to absorb good energy for the new year. But also, the the fireplaces in the houses were very important, and the fire in the house was very important, because on they were never allowed. It's not that they were never allowed, but they didn't believe in letting the fire go out in the house. The house was always warm. That's the way they heated their houses, was a
Yeah.
fire. So on the eve of Samhain, they would let their fire go out, and they'd clean out the hearth very well. Now, the next day, the next evening, there would be a communal bonfire, right?
Okay.
And all the community would come to the bonfire, and there'd be dancing and singing and whatever else. But they would scoop out a turnip, and every household would take turf or coals from the communal fire and bring it back to their house and start up the fire for the new year. The old fire with any negative
Was
energy was
gone.
gone, and they were welcoming in the new Celtic New Year and bringing in all the good energy, because all the locality and all the locals would have given good energy to that fire. There
Yep.
was also other things that they did. For instance, and we do it on New Year's Eve as well. You see, we used to make tea in a teapot, not tea
Mm,
bags. So the tea leaves would always be thrown out the night before to the fairies.
yes,
And we
I
do
heard
that on
that.
we do that on New Year's Eve as well. And then there was another thing, a pat of butter would be put inside the cow shed. And if the pat of butter stayed, you knew that you were going to have a good milk yield for the new year. There's a whole
Yeah.
little bits and pieces.
I just knew Galway had this very magical, it's almost like a portal of some type of magic that came in, because don't they also have where uh they have puka.
Yeah, they have the Puka Festival in
Yes, that they
in
have the festival to make sure you put the mask on so puka doesn't
yeah,
recognize you
yeah,
and things like that. So, just the Galway area alone is having all this different type of magic that's coming around,
yeah,
that anybody that's on this tour, some type of spiritual thing could happen for them.
yeah.
And it's all going to be something that is just going to be just for them only. And that's why I thought, I'm like, I've heard so much of the extra magic that's
Yeah,
there in this area.
Galway is one of these very special places. The city
Yeah.
itself is, and of course it was called the City of the Tribes. And again,
Okay.
like that, it was constantly attacked by the Vikings and the Normans and the British and the whole lot. And again, it has its own history as well. But
Yeah.
the uniqueness about Galway and the people of Galway and the atmosphere in the city itself is amazing, really. And there's
Yeah, I'm
always
excited.
music on the streets and everything. It's beautiful. But you'll have your evening, you've got plenty of time in Galway after we leave Pat's farm, and there's some absolutely amazing restaurants in Galway.
Oh, good. You
Oh,
had me buy food.
oh, it's fun. And then you've got the nightlife there, and you've got some of the bars that are full of traditional music. I mean, it's very tribal. That would be the
Oh, good.
choice for Galway. So that's your day 5. And day 6, we are going to Leap Castle. You're going to do an investigation in Leap Castle. Now, Leap Castle is regarded to be one of the most haunted castles in Europe. Sean Ryan is a musician. He's a friend of mine. I know him very well. And he lives there with his wife.
Nice.
Sean would talk about Emily and Harriet, the 2 children that come out to play, and this governess that turns up every time they come out to play. Now, he believes she's their governess because this spirit comes out every time the children are out. This is there's a massive history with this castle. There was the bloody church. There was a priest murdered by his brother up on the bloody church. There's an elemental there. Even outside, it is haunted. So believe me, guys, this is going to probably knock your socks off.
Yeah.
Sean's place. So you'll be there for, a fair old time in Sean's place. And then because I think we'll be doing that in the evening. We'd probably be there 4 or 5 hours in the evening.
Yes.
We might even work at that. Sean will cook us dinner there.
Oh, now this way everybody could have that story they actually ate in a real castle.
Castle and the dinner was cooked by the Lord and Lady of the manor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh, how fabulous.
we'll organize that. And then,
Yeah.
we're going to a place called Parks Castle. It's outside Sligo.
Oh,
We might, no, that's another surprise. I'm going to
yeah.
leave that. I'm not saying a word. Parks Castle, we're going to go to Parks Castle, and then we're going to Glencar Waterfall, which is beautiful. These are all scenic days. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to bring you around to the Holy Well, Tubbergalt Holy Well. It's one of these very special places. And again, it's where Christianity met paganism, because there was somebody
Yeah.
went in recently and cut down a wishing tree. But there was,
What?
up until very recently, there was a wishing tree there. But some vandals went in and vandalized the place as well. It's okay, but they went in with what do you call these things that cut iron? Well, they went in and they cut rails off the altar and everything.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm. But it's beautiful, and it's right beside Glencar Lake, and the scenery is just simply, and the peace and quiet in it is beautiful. And again, some not nice things happened because this was during penal times. This was
Yeah.
made popular because during penal times, Catholics were not allowed congregate for mass. So they would have secret places that they would congregate. And there was always a lookout because the redcoats, or the English
Yeah.
army, would be looking for, you know, Irish people that were congregating. And some people were killed at that holy well as well. So yeah, it's all. As I said, you can't throw a stone in Ireland, but you hit a ghost, and there's a reason for it.
Absolutely.
So day 8, we go back up to Dublin. This is Fitzpatrick's Hotel. It's a castle. It's a 17th century castle, but it's a 4-star hotel, and it's right beside Killiney Beach. And if people want, we can drop them into Dublin, and they can do a day's shopping in Dublin, and then we
Yeah.
can pick them up in the evening. But we always like to stay here so the people get the chance to stay in a hotel or a castle before they leave. And we love to have, I usually organize, if people want to join in, a group meal there.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just nice to have a group meal, have everybody sit down together and have a chat about the tour, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they'd love to see again,
Yes.
you know. And then the following day, you're back at Terminal 2 Airport, Dublin.
Wah, wah.
I know, I know, but that's the tour, and we have a good few signed up already.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
like, I mean, just for the twin room, we only have what, two
we
left,
left, yeah.
and we
Don't
have
have
four
4
left
left
for single.
and 5
Um,
left for
yeah.
yeah. So
So
yeah, so I would advise people, one way or another, as I say to people, um, they can they can secure their place with a deposit.
yes,
Now, there's a registration date, and I allow 14 days after the registration date for people to cancel. After that 14 days, their deposit is non-refundable. But up to that 14 days, their deposit is refundable. And I also have installment plans. If anyone wants to use their installment plan, you know, this is September, so you have a year, you have, let's say, 10 months of an installment plan. And you have it paid off before you know.
well, and that's what we were saying, when we invest in ourselves. I mean, you look at the price right there, 25, 75, up to 28. That is honestly, I mean, people go out and buy refrigerators for more money than that.
Yeah.
But when you do an installment plan, if you break it out, you're going to have months prior to before you get your airline ticket.
Yeah.
So it's so doable, and again, it's not like you're going over to Ireland to spend all this money. That's something you choose to do.
Yeah.
It's being with people who are like-minded, who all are looking for just that one little extra, I just want to breathe kind of thing. And we do have some secrets we're doing
We
too.
do.
We just
We
couldn't
do.
put it out here.
No, we do have good secrets.
Yes.
We're not,
So,
I love it when we land these secrets on these people
oh,
because they
me
have
too.
no idea. They have no
They're like,
idea.
well, what?
And yeah, they think, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I get great satisfaction and great kick out of watching people being so,
Yes.
delirious. They don't know which way to look, because it's,
Yes.
yeah, it's
And I
fantastic.
love it that we have so much time in between everything. It's not like a regular tour where you're hustled constantly, get on the bus, get on the bus. It is, hey, we get to walk around in these beautiful little towns. We get to smell the different foods that are being cooked and seeing all the different, like when I did one tour, we tried the whiskey. Well, of course we're going to try the whiskey in Ireland. I mean, why not, right?
Exactly.
Um, and some of the people that were on the tour with me before are on this tour. So
Yeah.
they understand the whole whiskey thing.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of one, experiencing all the firsts, of everything.
Of everything and experiencing it together. But what I love about them is, you see all these people coming in at the airport terminal too. Now, some of your guys will know each other. There's no doubt
Yes,
about that, but some probably won't, and they might be a little bit shy and a little bit nervous. But day two is a different day to day
we're
one.
all friends.
And day three, everybody is laughing on the bus. And day four, you can see them, they're even singing on the bus, that
Yes,
type of thing. And
yes,
by the end of the tour, if nothing else happened on the tour, I love it that I see people swapping phone numbers
yes,
and they're friends and they're hugging each other and they're actually crying because they're leaving. And then that they've made a connection and that they've made friendships. And then when you come back, you see them connecting with each other on Facebook and you
yes.
see them visiting each other. And
Uh-huh.
you see the friendships that they made in Ireland have lasted and have developed and have become deep friendships. And something that gives me the greatest satisfaction, Michelle.
But me too, I seen it happen. And I built some friendships too. People I would have never met, but knew somehow they were supposed to be in my life at some
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
And I met them, and they're actually coming on this trip, but they're, a deep bond, and it's so great. And some other ones that I have met, like at some of my events that are coming, that I get to spend quality time with them that at an event you can't, you're all over
yeah,
the place.
yes, yeah,
Here, we're going to break bread together. We're going to walk these beautiful gardens together and actually really get to see and talk to each other.
yeah,
That's what I get excited about,
yeah,
not just the paranormal,
yeah.
but everything in between.
And you get every place you go, you will have enough time to get a real sense of the place.
Yeah.
If I can't understand, and I could never understand it. I would watch when I lived in Ireland, and you'll see it, and maybe we'll pop in as well. There's a 12th century abbey just about 4 miles away from Lough. And when I was living there, I used to see these buses pull up. I always tell the story. People are probably bored with me telling the story, but it means a lot to me because this is kind of where the whole idea started for me. I used to see 50, 53 people jumping out of a bus, Michelle, and they take photograph of something like that building behind me. And then they jump back in the bus.
Yeah.
I used to wonder what in the name of God are they doing that for? That's the most ridiculous waste of time and money because they will have that photograph, but they will have no idea in 10 years' time what the photograph is about, where the
Correct.
building was, or anything about the building. They didn't get to walk in, they didn't get to hear the locals tell them about the rich history of the building. they didn't get to walk through the ruins of the building and actually see the majesty of what it used to be, because you can
Yeah.
see it from the outside, but when you walk in, even when there are ruins, and you walk in through the ruins and you look and you realize, oh my gosh, this
Yes.
would have been magnificent.
Because the walls will start talking to
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. And then you have a brilliant local guide who will
Yep.
give you the whole history of the place, and you remember it.
Yeah.
And in 10 years, when you look at that picture, you think, oh yeah, that was a Cistercian abbey. I remember the stories about that. And your money is then well spent.
And then I'm going to be the one going, well, this is Left Castle, and I had the best food there. I won't remember the ghost hunt, but I'm going to remember the food.
Yeah. And Sean will be telling us stories while we're eating.
And see how amazing that is, to sit and that's some of the things like when we do some of these events here, when we go out to eat, we always try to find the local little restaurant because then people start talking about the stories before we do it. And that to me is the most amazing part before you go somewhere is hearing all the stories. And
It's
then
the
you're like,
locals,
okay,
you
wait a
see,
minute.
yeah, it's the local stories. It's not what's written in the
Yes,
book, because there's so many myths and legends, and there's so many local stories about the place that's not written down anywhere.
yes,
Do you
I
know?
know.
And it's fantastic. And you think, God, I never heard that. How come I didn't
Yeah.
hear that? So it's fantastic. And oh, the requirement for your people. Haha, there's a requirement, ladies and gentlemen. You have to either bring songs, or you have to have stories, or you have to have jokes that you can share on the bus while we're on our travels, because it makes the road shorter. But it's not just your tour guide or Michelle that'll be entertaining you on the bus. You're going to have to do a little bit of entertaining yourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's always fun, and we do have such a laugh, honestly.
Yes.
So if anyone wants to, you should jump with us and spend the time with Michelle, and you get to say, I hung out with Michelle Roos for 9 days. Huh. You know,
Ah,
you get the chance to say that. Either contact Michelle and she'll send you the links, or go on www.secretirelandtoursllc.com. And if you have any questions, just write MAI at secretirelandtoursllc.com, and I'll answer your questions. But if you're interested, get your name on as quick as
yeah,
you can, because it is filling up now.
it is.
Yeah, yeah. So what's your next project?
Um, what am I doing next? Oh, September 14th, I'll be at Broadhead Manor with David
Oh,
Childers.
good.
And so we have an event there. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah,
And then our October starts getting pretty busy.
yeah,
So
October would. So if
yeah.
anybody wanted to contact you, Michelle, how would they contact you?
Well, one, they can actually find me on Facebook.
Okay.
Michelle Roos on Facebook, very easy to find. But if you have questions about anything or you want to see what events I have, I'm going to be going to, if you go to Riverside, Iowa Paranormal.org, I have everything listed there, even this tour. So if you forget where to go, either way, you'll always get the link to get on the tour too. And any other events that are local, that if you just want to check it out, meet me and all that first, we could definitely do that.
And if anybody had, now I don't know whether you do this or not, I'm going to ask you, but supposing somebody had what they felt like a dark entity in their home, can they contact you to
Yes,
deal
you
with
can
that? Or
contact me personally on Facebook, or when you go on the website, there is a ask for help. It's a little form that just gives me your information of who you are. I make contact with you and everything is confidential.
oh, that's great to know, because you know, I'm sure there
Yeah.
are there are people who might need your help out there.
And I am definitely here to give it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank Michelle for joining me. I love talking to Michelle. And I thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and look Michelle up on Facebook. And again, if you have any questions, just contact either myself or Michelle, and we'll be delighted to answer them if we can. Now, don't ask very, very hard questions, because I might have to send it over to Michelle to answer them.
And we'll both be like, what?
Yeah, yeah. How do we answer this one? Nothing very, very technical or anything like that. But thank you all for tuning in. Once again, Michelle, thank you so much
Thank
for joining.
you.
Bye.
Bye.